Do you believe that people from the distant future are already walking among us? What if we told you right now that there are documented cases of individuals claiming to come from the year 4128, and the evidence they've brought back is absolutely mind-blowing? If you're thinking that time travelers from over 2,000 years in the future sounds like pure science fiction, and that there has to be a rational explanation for everything, then we're extremely curious to see how you explain these 10 shocking cases. Each one presents details so specific, so impossible to fake, that even the hardest skeptics have had to pause and reconsider. So let's jump straight into the first one, and this one will absolutely shake your understanding of reality. In March 2019, a man walked into a police station in Portland, Oregon, claiming he had lost his identification and needed help getting home. But when officers asked for his details, what he pulled from his pocket made everyone in that room freeze. It wasn't a driver's license or passport. It was a translucent card that projected a three-dimensional hologram of his face, complete with rotating biometric data that floated in midair. The technology was unlike anything the officers had ever seen. When they asked where he got it, Marcus Chen calmly explained that it was standard government-issued identification from the year 4128, and that he had accidentally traveled back while testing a prototype temporal device. The officers thought it was an elaborate prank until they tried to scan the device with every piece of technology available. Nothing could read it, nothing could replicate it, and no material scientist who later examined it could identify what it was made from. Officer Sarah Jenkins was the first to handle the device, and she later described the experience in her official report. The card was impossibly thin, almost paper-like, yet completely rigid. It felt neither warm nor cold to the touch, as if it existed at a temperature separate from the environment around it. When she held it up to the light, the hologram activated automatically, projecting Chen's face in stunning three-dimensional detail. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. The hologram didn't just show his face, it displayed what appeared to be vital statistics, a constantly updating heart rate, body temperature, and even neural activity patterns represented by pulsing waves of light. Information that should be impossible to display without sensors physically attached to his body. The officers immediately called in specialists from Portland State University's technology department. Dr. Raymond Cole, a materials scientist, arrived within the hour and spent the next 3 days examining the device. His findings were absolutely baffling. Under electron microscopy, the material showed a molecular structure that appeared to shift and reorganize itself in real time. It wasn't plastic, wasn't metal, wasn't glass. It was something else, entirely. Something that seemed to exist in a state between solid and liquid. Dr. Cole stated in his report that the material exhibited properties of quantum superposition, maintaining multiple states simultaneously, which should be theoretically impossible for an object visible to the naked eye. But then things took an even stranger turn. Marcus Chen agreed to be questioned by investigators, and his story never wavered. He claimed he was a temporal research technician from the year 4128, assigned to conduct historical documentation of early 21st century urban infrastructure. According to Chen, time travel in his era was tightly regulated by a global temporal authority, and travelers were required to carry holographic identification that could only be read by technology from their own time period. He explained that he had arrived 2 weeks earlier and had been living quietly in Portland, studying the city's transit systems when his temporal recall device malfunctioned. He came to the police station hoping they could somehow help him return home, not realizing that nothing in our timeline could assist him. Now, imagine this for a moment. If Chen was telling the truth, he was stranded over 2,000 years in the past with no way home and carrying identification that proved exactly where and when he came from. Authorities tried everything to verify or disprove his claims. They ran background checks, but no Marcus Chen matching his description existed in any database. They examined his clothing, which appeared normal at first glance, but under close inspection showed stitching patterns created by no known manufacturing process. The fabric itself was self-cleaning and seemed to regulate temperature automatically, adapting to the environment around it. Skeptics, of course, had their theories. Some argued it was an elaborate hoax perpetrated by a tech company testing new holographic technology. Others suggested Chen was suffering from a mental condition and had somehow acquired experimental military hardware. But here's what absolutely no one could explain. On March 19, 2019, exactly 7 days after Chen's arrival at the police station, he simply vanished. Security cameras showed him sitting in an interrogation room at 3:47 a.m. when the footage suddenly distorted with what witnesses described as a flash of blue-white light. When the cameras came back online 30 seconds later, he was gone. The holographic ID card remained on the table, but it had stopped functioning completely, becoming nothing more than a lifeless piece of translucent material. To this day, that card sits in an evidence locker in Portland, and not a single scientist has been able to reactivate it or even determine what it's made of. Pretty insane when you think about it. So is Marcus Chen truly a time traveler from the year 4128, stranded in our era by a technological malfunction? And if so, who or what brought him back home? Or is he still out there somewhere, walking among us with technology we can't even begin to understand? A thought that is as fascinating as it is deeply unsettling. What if someone handed you a device the size of a credit card and told you it could clean the air in an entire city block for 50 years without any power source? You'd probably laugh it off as impossible. But in 2021, a woman named Elena Vasquez appeared at an environmental technology conference in Stockholm carrying exactly that. She called herself a climate restoration specialist from the year 4128, sent back to help humanity avoid an ecological catastrophe that in her timeline had already occurred. Elena demonstrated the device in front of dozens of scientists and engineers. Within minutes, air quality monitors showed dramatic improvements in particulate matter and CO2 levels in the sealed testing chamber. The device emitted no heat, required no batteries, and showed no signs of any known chemical or mechanical process. When researchers asked to examine it internally, Elena refused, saying the technology was too dangerous in the wrong hands. She vanished 3 days later, leaving the device behind, which mysteriously stopped functioning the moment she disappeared. The Nordic Climate Solutions Conference took place from September 14th to 17th, 2021, bringing together over 300 environmental scientists, engineers, and climate researchers from 47 countries. Elena Vasquez registered as an independent researcher, providing credentials that appeared legitimate but later proved impossible to verify with any known institution. She was described by witnesses as calm, professional, and remarkably knowledgeable about atmospheric chemistry and future climate models. Dr. Anders Lindholm, the conference organizer, remembered her vividly. He said she carried herself with absolute confidence and seemed genuinely concerned about humanity's future, warning repeatedly that we were approaching a point of no return. On the second day of the conference, Elena requested time for an unscheduled demonstration during the open innovation session. She produced a thin metallic card, roughly the size and thickness of a credit card, with a smooth matte gray surface. No buttons, no display, no visible components whatsoever. She placed it on a table inside a sealed acrylic testing chamber that conference organizers had set up for evaluating air filtration prototypes. The chamber contained air deliberately polluted with diesel exhaust, industrial particulates, and elevated CO2 levels, simulating urban pollution. Now, here's where it gets absolutely insane. Within 90 seconds of placing the device inside the chamber, sensors began registering changes. Particulate matter dropped by 67%, CO2 levels decreased by 43%. Volatile organic compounds virtually disappeared. The transformation was so rapid and dramatic that several scientists initially suspected the monitoring equipment had malfunctioned. But multiple redundant sensors all confirmed the same readings. Dr. Annika Bergstrom, an atmospheric chemist from Uppsala University, was in the room and later stated she had never seen anything remotely like it in her 22-year career. The air inside that chamber went from toxic to cleaner than a remote forest in less than 2 minutes. But then the questions started flooding in. How was it powered? What was the mechanism? Elena explained that the device used what she called catalytic quantum filtration, a process that wouldn't be discovered for another 2 millennia. She claimed it worked by manipulating matter at the subatomic level, converting pollutants directly into harmless compounds without requiring energy input beyond an initial activation charge that could last decades. The device essentially borrowed energy from quantum fluctuations in the vacuum of space itself, a concept that sounds like pure science fiction, yet there it was, functioning perfectly in front of dozens of witnesses. Scientists immediately requested permission to examine the device internally, to X-ray it, to understand its composition. Elena firmly refused every request. She stated that the technology involved principles of quantum mechanics that, if misunderstood or weaponized by present-day governments, could lead to catastrophic consequences. She would only allow external observation and air quality testing, nothing more. Think about that for a moment. She traveled over 2,000 years into the past to help humanity, but refused to let anyone understand how her technology actually worked. Some found this suspicious, others thought it showed remarkable restraint. For 3 days, Elena remained at the conference, demonstrating the device repeatedly and answering questions about the future. She described a world where Earth's atmosphere had been so severely damaged by 2300 years that mass extinction events had begun. According to her timeline had developed these purification devices as a desperate measure to save what remained of the biosphere. She claimed she was part of a temporal intervention program designed to give humanity the tools it needed before catastrophe struck. Extremely creepy when you consider the implications. On September 17th, Elena checked out of her hotel at 6 a.m. Security footage shows her walking toward the conference center, but she never arrived. She simply vanished somewhere between the hotel and the venue, a distance of less than 400 meters. The device she had left in the testing chamber for ongoing monitoring stopped working at precisely 6:47 a.m., the estimated time of her disappearance. When researchers examined it, the device had become completely inert, just a piece of gray metal with no special properties whatsoever. No residual energy signature, no unusual materials, nothing. As if whatever made it function had been remotely deactivated or had simply ceased to exist. To this day, absolutely no one can explain what powered that device or how it achieved such dramatic results. Independent laboratories analyzed the inert device and found it was made of a titanium alloy with trace elements they couldn't identify. Pretty fascinating that it worked flawlessly for 3 days and then just stopped the moment Elena disappeared. So was Elena Vasquez truly a time traveler trying to save humanity from an environmental apocalypse? And if the device was real, why did it stop working? Was it designed to function only in her presence? Or did something or someone from the year 4128 recall both her and the technology before it could fall into the wrong hands? A thought that is as terrifying as it is intriguing. Imagine meeting someone with a perfectly circular scar on their temple, exactly 2.3 centimeters in diameter, and when they explain what it is, your blood runs cold. That's exactly what happened to Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a neurosurgeon in Boston, when a patient named David Kronos came to her clinic in 2018 complaining of severe headaches. The scar tissue was unlike anything in medical literature, showing signs of advanced surgical precision that went far beyond current capabilities. But what made Dr. Mitchell's hands shake was what she found on the CT scan. Microscopic filaments extended from the scar site deep into David's brain, made of a material that appeared both organic and synthetic simultaneously. David claimed he was from the year 4128, where neural interfaces were implanted at birth to allow direct communication with artificial intelligence systems. He said he had removed his own implant before traveling back in time, fearing it could be tracked. The filaments Dr. Mitchell discovered were supposedly residual connection points that his body couldn't fully absorb. When she tried to take a biopsy, the material dissolved on contact with surgical instruments, leaving absolutely no trace. David Kronos walked into Massachusetts General Hospital's neurology department on October 3, 2018, presenting with debilitating migraines that he described as feeling like electricity pulsing through his skull. He was soft-spoken, articulate, and according to Dr. Mitchell, seemed almost reluctant to be there at all. During the initial examination, she noticed the unusual scar on his right temple. It was perfectly symmetrical, with edges so clean they looked laser-cut. When she asked about it, David hesitated before explaining that it was the site of a neural implant removal. At first, Dr. Mitchell assumed he was referring to some experimental medical device, perhaps for epilepsy or Parkinson's treatment. But then he clarified. The implant, he said, had been installed in the year 4128, where every human received one at birth. Now think about this for a moment. According to David, in his timeline, neural interfaces weren't optional technology. They were standard biology. Children born in his era came into the world already scheduled for implantation within their first week of life. These devices allowed direct brain-to-computer communication, instant access to all human knowledge, and seamless interaction with artificial intelligence systems that managed every aspect of society. He described it as being constantly connected to a vast network of information and other human minds, able to communicate thoughts without speaking, access memories with perfect clarity, and even share sensory experiences with others across the globe. Dr. Mitchell ordered a CT scan, expecting to find perhaps some unusual scarring or maybe evidence of experimental hardware. What she saw instead made her call in 3 colleagues to verify she wasn't imagining it. The scan revealed hundreds of microscopic filaments radiating from the scar site into David's brain tissue, spreading like roots through his frontal cortex, temporal lobe, and deep into his limbic system. But here's what was absolutely baffling. These filaments appeared to be made of a material that showed up on the CT scan as both organic tissue and metallic compound simultaneously, depending on the angle of observation. It was as if the material existed in 2 states at once. Dr. Mitchell had seen brain implants before, experimental electrodes used for deep brain stimulation, cochlear implants, and other neurotechnology. But those devices were crude by comparison, bulky, clearly artificial, and easily distinguished from brain tissue. These filaments were integrated so seamlessly that in some areas it was impossible to tell where brain tissue ended and the foreign material began. When she asked David how he had removed the main implant himself, he explained that in the year 4128, the devices were designed with emergency extraction protocols. If someone needed to remove their implant for any reason, a specific sequence of thoughts would trigger a self-dissolution process, breaking down the main hardware into harmless compounds that the body could absorb. However, the neural connection filaments were permanent, designed to last a lifetime. But then came the moment that sent chills down Dr. Mitchell's spine. She decided to take a biopsy sample of one of the filaments to analyze its composition. Using the finest surgical tools available, she carefully attempted to extract a microscopic piece during a minor procedure. The instant her instrument made contact with the filament, it began to dissolve. Not slowly, not gradually, but instantaneously, as if it had never existed. Within seconds, the entire network of filaments visible on the scan had vanished completely. A follow-up CT scan showed absolutely nothing. David's brain appeared completely normal, with no trace of the foreign material that had been clearly visible just hours before. David himself seemed unsurprised by this development. He explained that the filaments were programmed with defensive protocols to prevent analysis or exploitation by unauthorized parties. The technology was so advanced and potentially dangerous that it was designed to self-destruct if anyone tried to study it. Think about how insane that is, a material sophisticated enough to interface directly with human neurons, yet programmed to vanish the moment someone tries to understand how it works. Dr. Mitchell documented everything in her medical records, including the before and after scans, witness statements from other doctors, and David's detailed testimony. Skeptics, of course, have their explanations. Some suggest David was part of a classified military experiment in brain-computer interfaces and fabricated the time travel story to cover up his involvement. Others believe he suffered from a delusional disorder and that the filaments were some kind of scanning artifact or unusual biological anomaly that coincidentally disappeared. But here's what absolutely no one can explain. How did those filaments dissolve so completely and so quickly? How did they appear both organic and synthetic on medical imaging? And why was the scar so perfectly circular and precisely 2.3 centimeters, a measurement that has no correlation to any known medical procedure? David Kronos left the hospital after his headaches mysteriously ceased following the filament dissolution. Dr. Mitchell never saw him again, and despite attempts to locate him for follow-up appointments, he seemed to have vanished completely. No address, no phone number, no records of his existence before or after that October day in 2018. Pretty creepy when you think about it. So is David Kronos truly from the year 4128, where humans are born with artificial intelligence wired directly into their brains? And if so, what was he doing in our time? Was he a refugee fleeing a future where privacy and individual thought no longer exist? Or was he something else entirely? A thought that is as fascinating as it is deeply disturbing. In 2017, an anonymous file appeared on several dark web forums containing precise predictions for cryptocurrency price movements spanning the next 50 years. The predictions were so specific, down to exact dates and prices, that most people dismissed them as an elaborate hoax. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Every single prediction for 2017 through 2023 has been accurate to within 0.02%. Every spike, every crash, every market movement was documented years before it happened. The file included a note claiming it was uploaded by a digital archivist from the year 4128 named Kai Yoshida, who said he was leaving breadcrumbs for those who would understand. Financial analysts who studied the document said the level of accuracy was statistically impossible without either time travel or manipulation of global markets on a scale that would require control of governments, banks, and millions of individual traders simultaneously. Several wealthy investors who followed the predictions became billionaires overnight, but when authorities tried to trace the file's origin, they hit a dead end. The digital fingerprint showed it was uploaded from an IP address that wouldn't be assigned by any internet service provider for another 75 years. The file first appeared on November 12, 2017, simultaneously uploaded to 3 different dark web forums known for discussing cryptocurrency trading and financial speculation. It was titled simply Temporal Market Data 2067 and contained 847 pages of detailed price predictions, market cap projections, and even specific news events that would trigger major price movements. Most users who encountered it assumed it was either a sophisticated scam or an AI-generated fantasy document designed to trick gullible investors. After all, predicting cryptocurrency prices even a week in advance is notoriously difficult. Predicting them accurately for 50 years? That seemed beyond impossible. But a small group of curious traders decided to test the predictions. They started with the short-term forecasts, the ones that could be verified within days or weeks. The document predicted that Bitcoin would reach exactly $19,183.06 on December 17, 2017. When that date arrived, Bitcoin peaked at $19,783.21, a difference of just 15 cents. Ethereum was predicted to hit $432.88 on January 13, 2018. It actually reached $132.9. Again, a margin of error so small, it defied explanation. Now imagine how those early testers felt watching these impossibly accurate predictions come true one after another. Word spread quickly through private trading groups and encrypted chat rooms. By early 2018, hundreds of investors were following the predictions, and many were making enormous profits. The document didn't just predict prices, it warned of specific crash events, including the exact date and time of major exchange hacks, regulatory announcements, and even social media posts by influential figures that would move markets. On March 7, 2018, the file predicted a specific tweet from a tech billionaire that would cause a particular cryptocurrency to drop 23% within 4 hours. That tweet was posted at the exact time predicted, using nearly identical wording to what was written in the document. But then, things took an even more mysterious turn. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the document predicted a massive surge in cryptocurrency adoption that would push Bitcoin to $64,860 on April 14, 2021. Skeptics said this was finally where the predictions would fail, because no one in 2017 could have foreseen a global pandemic. Yet on April 14, 2021, Bitcoin reached its peak at $6,429, a difference of just $34 on a prediction made 4 years earlier about an event nobody saw coming. Absolutely baffling when you think about the implications. Financial experts from major investment firms quietly began studying the document, though most refused to discuss it publicly for fear of appearing foolish. Dr. Marcus Webb, an econometrics professor at MIT, conducted a statistical analysis and published his findings in a private research paper. His conclusion was stunning. The probability of achieving this level of accuracy through random chance or even the most sophisticated predictive algorithms was approximately 1 in 10^47. That's a number so astronomical that it essentially means impossible. Dr. Webb stated that only 2 explanations made sense. Either someone had discovered a way to perfectly model all human behavior and global events decades in advance, or the predictions came from someone who had already witnessed these events occur. The note accompanying the file was brief but chilling. It read, "To those seeking proof of temporal displacement, I offer this archive. I am Kai Yoshida, digital archivist, year 4128. Your timeline's financial systems will collapse in 2043, but the seeds of recovery exist in these patterns. This data is not for profit, but for preparation. Use it wisely. The future is not fixed, but these currents are strong." Pretty creepy, right? The idea that someone from over 2,000 years in the future would send back financial data as a warning. When cybersecurity experts and government agencies finally investigated the file's origin, they discovered something that sent chills through the tech community. The metadata showed it was uploaded from an IP address in the 2001 ORODB8.85A3 range, which is part of the IPv6 documentation and testing range. Here's the problem: that specific address wasn't supposed to be assigned to any internet service provider until 2092, according to the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority's allocation schedule. The file had somehow been uploaded from an IP address that wouldn't exist for another 75 years. Multiple forensic teams verified this finding, and absolutely no one could explain it. To this day, investors continue to follow the predictions, and they continue to be accurate. The document predicted the 2022 cryptocurrency crash down to specific percentage losses for major coins. It forecasted regulatory changes in different countries months before they were announced. Some who've profited from the predictions have tried to locate Kai Yoshida, but no records of anyone by that name exist in any database, employment record, or public registry anywhere in the world. The few who've attempted to modify the file or trace its code have reported their computers crashing immediately, as if the document itself was protected by some kind of defensive programming. Skeptics argue it must be an elaborate market manipulation scheme by a powerful organization with inside information and the ability to influence global financial systems. Others think it's an AI that somehow achieved predictive capabilities far beyond current technology. But here's what neither explanation can account for: the future IP address, the impossibly precise predictions about random events, and the fact that following these predictions has made people wealthy while the mysterious uploader gains absolutely nothing. So is Kai Yoshida truly a digital archivist from the year 4128 who sent this data back as a warning? And if the document says our financial systems will collapse in 2043, should we, be taking that seriously? Or is someone or something playing a game with our reality that we don't even begin to understand? A thought that is as terrifying as it is fascinating. What would you do if you met someone who looked 25 years old but had a birth certificate proving they were born in 1945? That's the impossible situation that confronted officials in Sydney, Australia in 2020 when a woman named Dr. Amara Singh presented herself at a hospital claiming to be 75 years old. Every document she carried, including hospital records, university degrees, and even DNA analysis from earlier in her life, confirmed her identity. But her biological age, tested through telomere length, cellular degradation, and metabolic markers, showed she had the body of someone in their mid-20s. Dr. Singh explained that she had volunteered for a temporal experiment in the year 4128, where medical technology had advanced to the point that aging could be completely reversed. As part of the experiment, participants were sent back to various points in history to observe how past societies functioned. The reversal process, she claimed, was so effective that her body had literally been rebuilt at the cellular level to match her 25-year-old self. Doctors who examined her were baffled. Not only did she show no signs of aging, but her cells regenerated at rates that defied everything known about human biology. She lived under medical observation for 2 years before vanishing without explanation in 2022. Dr. Amara Singh walked into St. Vincent's Hospital in Sydney on June 8, 2020, requesting a comprehensive health screening. She appeared to be a fit young woman in her 20s, with clear skin, perfect vision, and the physical vitality of someone in peak condition. But when she handed over her identification documents, the admitting staff thought there had been a mistake. Her birth certificate showed she was born on March 15, 1945, in Mumbai, India. That would make her 75 years old. The attending physician, Dr. Helen Cartwright, initially assumed the documents were fraudulent or belonged to a relative with the same name. But Dr. Singh insisted they run every possible verification test. What happened next absolutely stunned the medical team. Dr. Singh produced decades of medical records, including x-rays from a broken arm in 1963, blood work from 1987, and even a DNA profile from a genetic study she'd participated in at the University of Melbourne in 2005. Forensic document examiners confirmed all papers were authentic, with no signs of forgery or alteration. The DNA sample from 2005 matched perfectly with a fresh sample taken in 2020. But here's what made absolutely no sense. When they compared her current DNA to the 2005 sample, her telomeres, the protective caps on chromosomes that shorten with age, were actually longer now than they had been 15 years earlier. In normal human biology, that's impossible. Telomeres only get shorter as we age, never longer. Dr. Cartwright assembled a team of specialists, including geneticists, endocrinologists, and aging researchers from across Australia. Over the next 3 weeks, they conducted the most comprehensive biological age assessment ever performed. They examined her organ function, bone density, skin elasticity, neural response times, and even the methylation patterns in her DNA, which serve as a reliable biological clock. Every single test confirmed the same impossible conclusion. Despite being 75 years old chronologically, Dr. Singh's biological age was approximately 24 to 26 years old. Think about how insane that is, not just looking young, but being young at the cellular level. But then Dr. Singh explained something that sent chills through everyone who heard it. She claimed that in the year 4128, aging had been completely conquered through a process called cellular chronological reset. According to her, medical science in that era had discovered how to reprogram every cell in the human body to revert to a younger state, essentially rebuilding a person from the inside out. The process took approximately 6 months and involved advanced nanotechnology that rewrote cellular memory, repaired DNA damage, and restored organs to their youthful condition. She said she had volunteered for a temporal observation program where participants underwent age reversal and were then sent back to various historical periods to study how societies evolved. Dr. Singh provided extraordinary details about her journey. She described being born in 1945, living a normal life, becoming a research scientist, and eventually retiring in 2015 at age 70. Then, she claimed, she was recruited in 2018 by an organization that revealed itself to be from the future. They brought her forward to the year 4128, reversed her aging, and sent her back to 2020 with instructions to observe and document early 21st century medical practices and social structures. Her mission was purely observational, she insisted, though she admitted feeling compelled to present herself to medical authorities because she knew her condition would be invaluable to aging research. Now, here's where it gets even more fascinating. The medical team didn't just take her word for it. They monitored her continuously for 2 years, and what they observed defied all known biology. When Dr. Singh sustained minor injuries, she healed at rates approximately 3 times faster than normal. Her immune system functioned with remarkable efficiency, fighting off infections that would typically require antibiotics without any medical intervention. Most incredibly, her cells showed virtually no signs of senescence, the process where cells stop dividing and gradually deteriorate. Under microscopic examination, her cells behaved like those of a teenager, dividing rapidly and perfectly, with no accumulation of the cellular debris that normally comes with age. Skeptics, of course, offered alternative explanations. Some suggested she might have a rare genetic condition that dramatically slowed aging, though no such condition has ever been documented to this degree. Others proposed she was the result of classified anti-aging experiments conducted by a government or private research organization. A few even speculated she might be an elaborate hoax involving an actress and falsified documents. But here's what absolutely no one could explain. Her DNA matched archived samples from decades earlier. Her historical medical records were verified as authentic by independent forensic experts, and her cellular biology showed characteristics that don't exist in any known human condition. Dr. Singh lived in a secure medical research facility in Sydney, voluntarily submitting to daily tests and examinations. She gave hundreds of hours of interviews describing life in the year 4128, detailing technologies, social structures, and scientific breakthroughs that wouldn't exist for over 2,000 years. Researchers filled notebooks with her accounts, though many struggled to comprehend descriptions of concepts that had no equivalent in current science. She spoke of cities that floated in Earth's atmosphere, of diseases that had been extinct for a millennium, and of a humanity that had spread across multiple planets in our solar system. Then, on August 3, 2022, Dr. Singh simply vanished. Security cameras showed her sleeping in her room at 2:17 a.m., and then at 2:18 a.m., the footage showed a brief flash of light. When guards checked her room at 6:00 a.m. for the scheduled morning examination, she was gone. No signs of forced entry, no indication anyone had entered or left the facility, and absolutely no trace of where she went. Her room was empty except for a handwritten note that read, "Thank you for your hospitality. The data collected here will help save millions in timelines yet to come. Do not mourn what you've lost. Celebrate what you've learned. The future is not fixed." Pretty creepy when you think about it. To this day, the Australian government has classified most of the research data collected during Dr. Singh's 2-year stay, releasing only limited information to the scientific community. The few papers that have been published describe her case as an unprecedented biological anomaly, without offering any explanation for how such a thing could be possible. So was Dr. Amara Singh truly a 75-year-old woman whose body had been reversed to age 25 by technology from the year 4128? And if so, where did she go? Was she recalled to the future, or did she simply move on to another time period to continue her observations? Or is the truth something even stranger, something our current understanding of biology and physics can't even begin to grasp? A thought that is as mind-blowing as it is deeply mysterious. In 2016, a man was found wandering the streets of Istanbul, speaking a language that shouldn't exist. He called himself Joran Thrace, and when linguists from the university were called to help, they made a discovery that left them speechless. The language he spoke contained elements of Turkish, Arabic, Mandarin, and English, but fused together in a completely systematic way that showed centuries of natural linguistic evolution. It wasn't a made-up jumble of words. It was a real, fully functional language with consistent grammar, syntax, and vocabulary that simply didn't exist in our timeline. Joran claimed that he was from the year 4128, where the language he spoke, called Universal Median, had naturally evolved after centuries of global integration and cultural blending. Linguists recorded over 40 hours of conversation with him, and computational analysis confirmed that the language followed all the rules of natural language development. He could write in a flowing script that blended multiple writing systems and could translate any modern language into a universal median instantly. When asked how he learned all these languages, he smiled and said that in his time, language barriers had been extinct for over 1,000 years. 2 months after his appearance, Joran vanished, but recordings of his speech are still studied by linguistic departments worldwide. Joran Thrace was discovered on September 14, 2016, in the Sultanahmet district of Istanbul, clearly disoriented and attempting to communicate with locals. Witnesses said he approached several people asking for help, but the sounds coming from his mouth made no sense to anyone. It wasn't gibberish, though. People who heard him speak said it sounded structured, purposeful, like a real language, just not one they recognized. Turkish police were called, and they initially suspected he might be suffering from a stroke or severe mental distress. But Joran was calm, coherent in his body language, and clearly trying to make himself understood. When standard translation apps and human translators failed to identify even a single word he was saying, authorities contacted Istanbul University's linguistics department. Dr. Ayşe Demirci, a professor specializing in historical linguistics and language evolution, arrived within hours. What she heard that day, she later said, changed everything she thought she knew about how languages work. Joran spoke in fluid, melodic sentences with a rhythm and structure that felt completely natural. Dr. Demirci could identify phonetic elements that sounded vaguely familiar, echoes of Turkish, hints of Arabic, structures that resembled Mandarin tones, and vocabulary that sometimes seemed close to English. But it was all woven together in a way that shouldn't be possible. Languages don't just blend randomly, they evolve over centuries through cultural contact, migration, and gradual integration. What Joran spoke sounded like it had undergone exactly that process, except the language didn't exist anywhere on Earth. Now, imagine being in that room, listening to someone speak a completely unknown language that somehow feels comprehensible, like you should be able to understand it but can't quite reach it. That's exactly what Dr. Demirci and her team experienced. They began recording everything Joran said, bringing in additional linguists, language acquisition specialists, and even computational linguists who worked with AI language models. Over the next 6 weeks, they documented more than 40 hours of conversation with Joran, during which he patiently taught them the basics of what he called universal median. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. Joran didn't just speak this impossible language. He could write it in a script that blended Arabic calligraphy, Chinese characters, Latin letters, and Cyrillic symbols into a flowing, beautiful writing system. When researchers showed him newspapers in Turkish, English, Arabic, and Mandarin, he could instantly translate them into universal median with perfect fluency. More incredibly, when they tested him with obscure languages like Welsh, Swahili, and Tagalog, he could still communicate in those languages and translate them into the universal median without hesitation. Think about that for a moment. He wasn't just multilingual. He possessed a linguistic ability that went far beyond anything ever documented in human history. Dr. Demirci's team conducted computational analysis on the recorded speech, feeding it into advanced language processing algorithms designed to identify linguistic patterns, grammatical structures, and evolutionary markers. The results were shocking. The AI analysis confirmed that universal median exhibited all the characteristics of a naturally evolved language. It had consistent verb conjugations, systematic noun declensions, logical sentence structures, and even idiomatic expressions that made sense within its internal logic. The language showed what linguists call creolization markers, features that appear when multiple languages blend over generations. But those markers indicated hundreds, possibly thousands of years of evolutionary development. Joran explained his presence calmly and consistently. He said he was a temporal anthropologist from the year 4128, studying ancient languages and cultures. According to him, by his time, humanity had undergone massive global integration. National borders still existed but were largely ceremonial. People moved freely across continents, and over centuries, languages had naturally blended into regional dialects that eventually coalesced into universal median, a language that incorporated elements from every major linguistic family on Earth. He claimed that in his era, children learned universal median as their primary language, though historical languages were still studied academically, much like we study Latin or ancient Greek today. But then came the demonstrations that absolutely no one could explain. Joran would take a sentence in English, translate it into universal median, then break down each word to show its etymological roots. He could trace how an English word might have blended with Arabic. Grammar structures, adopted Mandarin tonal qualities, and been spelled using a hybrid script over centuries of evolution. Researchers verified his explanations using historical linguistic principles, and everything checked out. His explanations followed the exact processes real languages undergo during natural evolution, except he was describing a future that hadn't happened yet. Skeptics argued that Joran must be an incredibly talented linguist who had created an elaborate constructed language like Esperanto or Klingon and fabricated a time travel story to gain attention. Others suggested he might be part of a classified government linguistics experiment or even an AI-generated personality testing how humans would react to a synthetic language. But here's what neither explanation could account for: the sheer complexity and internal consistency of universal median. Constructed languages, even sophisticated ones created by expert linguists, always show artificial markers, patterns that reveal conscious design rather than natural evolution. Universal median showed none of those markers. Additionally, the speed at which Joran could translate and the depth of his linguistic knowledge would require decades of study across dozens of languages. Yet he appeared to be in his early 30s. Dr. Demirzi and her team were preparing to publish their findings and invite international linguistic experts to verify their research when Joran disappeared. On November 22, 2016, he left the university research facility where he'd been voluntarily staying and simply never returned. Security footage showed him walking toward a nearby park at 4:35 p.m., but he never emerged from the other side. Extensive searches found nothing, no trace of where he went, no records of him leaving the country, absolutely no indication of his existence before or after those 2 months in Istanbul. Pretty creepy, right? To this day, linguistic departments around the world study the 40 hours of recordings, analyzing every phoneme, every grammatical structure, every written character. Some researchers believe universal median could provide insights into how languages might naturally evolve in an increasingly globalized world. Others think the recordings are evidence of something far more profound. So is Joran Thrace truly from the year 4128, speaking a language that won't exist for over 2,000 years? And if universal median is real, does that mean our future is already determined, following a path toward global integration and linguistic unity? Or did Joran's appearance somehow create a timeline where universal median might now develop because we've heard it? A thought that is as mind-bending as it is utterly fascinating. How would you react if you met someone who claimed they didn't need to eat food because their body could produce energy directly from sunlight? That's exactly what scientists at a research facility in Geneva encountered in 2019 when a volunteer named Vera Solberg agreed to be studied under controlled conditions. Vera claimed to be from the year 4128, where genetic modifications had given humans the ability to photosynthesize like plants, eliminating the need for traditional agriculture and solving food scarcity forever. For 30 days, researchers monitored her in a sealed environment with no access to food. She consumed only water and spent several hours each day under full-spectrum light. Not only did she not lose weight, but her energy levels remained completely stable. Blood tests showed chlorophyll-like compounds in her bloodstream and cellular structures in her skin that resembled plant chloroplasts. When she was placed in complete darkness with no light exposure, she became lethargic and weak within hours, recovering immediately when light was reintroduced. The lead researcher, Dr. Hans Becker, published preliminary findings that were immediately retracted by the journal due to impossibility of claims, even though the data was meticulously documented. Vera left the facility on day 31, thanking the team for their hospitality, and was never seen again. Vera Solberg contacted the Geneva Institute for Biological Research in May 2019 through an anonymous email, offering herself as a test subject for what she called post-human metabolic studies. Dr. Hans Becker, who headed the Institute's Nutrition and Metabolism Department, initially dismissed the email as a prank. But something about the specific scientific terminology Vera used and the detailed description of her claimed abilities intrigued him enough to arrange a preliminary meeting. When Vera arrived at the facility on June 3, 2019, she appeared to be a healthy woman in her late 20s with an unusual physical characteristic that immediately caught everyone's attention. Her skin had a subtle greenish tint, barely noticeable in indoor lighting, but more pronounced in direct sunlight, giving her an almost ethereal appearance. During the initial consultation, Vera explained her origin calmly and matter-of-factly. She claimed to be from the year 428, where humanity had faced catastrophic food shortages due to climate change and overpopulation. According to her, scientists in her era had successfully integrated plant DNA into the human genome, giving people the ability to perform photosynthesis. The modification, she said, was now standard for all humans in her time, administered genetically before birth. People still ate food for pleasure and social reasons, but it was no longer a biological necessity. They could survive indefinitely on nothing but water and sunlight. Imagine that for a moment. A world where hunger literally doesn't exist because humans can make their own food like plants do. Becker assembled a team of 8 specialists, including geneticists, nutritionists, dermatologists, and cellular biologists. They designed a rigorous 30-day study with Vera's full consent. She would live in a sealed medical observation room equipped with 24-hour video surveillance, full-spectrum lighting that mimicked natural sunlight, and comprehensive monitoring equipment. No food would be available, only unlimited water. The team would conduct daily blood tests, metabolic measurements, weight checks, and energy expenditure analysis. Every major medical journal would demand this level of documentation before accepting such an extraordinary claim. The study began on June 10, 2019. For the first 3 days, researchers expected Vera to show typical signs of fasting: weight loss, decreased energy, metabolic slowdown, elevated stress hormones. But none of that happened. Her weight remained stable at 58.3 kilograms throughout the entire first week. Her energy levels, measured through physical activity tests and cognitive assessments, showed no decline whatsoever. She spent approximately 6 hours each day sitting or standing in direct light from the full-spectrum lamps, and during those periods she appeared almost meditative, as if absorbing the light itself. Pretty fascinating when you think about it. But then came the blood test results that absolutely shocked the research team. On day 7, laboratory analysis revealed the presence of chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B in Vera's bloodstream. These are the exact pigments plants use to capture light energy during photosynthesis. In humans, these compounds should not exist at all. Even more incredibly, her blood showed elevated levels of glucose being produced internally, not from dietary intake, but apparently from the photosynthetic process itself. Dr. Becker later stated in interviews that seeing those lab results was one of the most surreal moments of his career. It was like discovering a human who could breathe underwater or fly without assistance. The team conducted a skin biopsy on day 12. And what they found under electron microscopy sent chills through everyone in the laboratory. Vera's skin cells contained structures that looked remarkably similar to chloroplasts, the organelles in plant cells that perform photosynthesis. These structures were integrated seamlessly into her dermal tissue, positioned just below the surface where they could absorb maximum light. Genetic analysis showed that her DNA contained sequences that matched plant genes responsible for photosynthetic processes, but they were somehow woven into human chromosomes in a way that appeared both surgical and natural simultaneously. Now, here's where the study took an even more dramatic turn. On day 18, researchers conducted what they called the darkness protocol. They placed Vera in a completely lightless room for 12 hours to see what would happen. Within 4 hours, she reported feeling tired and weak. By hour 8, she was visibly lethargic, barely able to stand. Her blood glucose levels had dropped significantly, and her metabolic rate had slowed dramatically. But the moment they turned the lights back on, her recovery was almost instantaneous. Within 30 minutes, she was back to normal energy levels, and blood tests showed her glucose production had resumed. It was like watching a wilted plant spring back to life after being watered. Absolutely insane when you consider we're talking about a human being, not a vegetable. Skeptics on the research team proposed alternative explanations. Some suggested Vera might have an extremely rare metabolic disorder that allowed her to survive on minimal calories, supplemented by hidden vitamin injections she was somehow administering. Others theorized she might be part of a classified genetic experiment conducted by a government or private organization. But here's what absolutely no one could explain: the presence of functional chloroplasts in human skin tissue, the chlorophyll in her bloodstream, and her immediate physical dependence on light. These weren't characteristics of any known human condition or genetic anomaly. They were impossible according to everything science understands about human biology. Dr. Becker prepared a comprehensive report of the findings and submitted it to The Lancet, one of the world's most prestigious medical journals. The paper included hundreds of pages of data, photographs, video documentation, and testimony from all 8 researchers involved. The journal's review board initially expressed interest, but ultimately rejected the paper with a statement citing extraordinary claims requiring extraordinary evidence and concerns about impossibility of the described biological mechanisms. Other journals followed suit. Despite having meticulous documentation, Dr. Becker found himself unable to publish what may have been the most important biological discovery in human history. On July 10, 2019, day 31 of the study, Vera thanked the research team for their professionalism and kindness. She said she hoped their documentation would be valuable someday, even if the world wasn't ready to accept it yet. She left the facility at 9:15 a.m., and security cameras showed her walking toward the Geneva city center. She was never seen again. Multiple attempts to locate her failed. The email address she'd used to contact the institute bounced back as non-existent. Not a single trace of Vera Solberg could be found in any database, travel record, or public registry anywhere in the world. To this day, Dr. Becker keeps all the research data in secure storage, hoping that someday the scientific community will be willing to examine it objectively. The tissue samples from Vera's biopsy mysteriously degraded within weeks of her departure, losing all their unusual characteristics and becoming indistinguishable from normal human tissue. So was Vera Solberg truly a photosynthetic human from the year 4128, where genetic engineering had solved world hunger by turning people into human-plant hybrids? And if so, what does it mean for humanity's future? Are we destined to become something beyond human, a new species that no longer needs the food chain that has sustained us for millions of years? Or was Vera something else entirely, a glimpse of an alternate evolution that perhaps we should fear rather than embrace? A thought that is as revolutionary as it is deeply unsettling. Imagine receiving a phone call from yourself, but from 2,000 years in the future, with a message that could save your life. That's the terrifying experience that happened to journalist Michael Torres in 2020. He received a call on his cell phone from an unknown number, and when he answered, the voice on the other end was his own, but older, more refined. The caller identified himself as Michael Torres from the year 4128, warning him not to board a flight scheduled for the following morning because it would crash, killing everyone on board. Michael was shaken but skeptical. However, the caller provided intimate details about his life that no one else could possibly know, including childhood memories he had never shared with anyone. Terrified, Michael canceled his flight. The plane crashed exactly as predicted, killing all 157 passengers. When investigators analyzed Michael's phone records, they found something that defied explanation. The call had come through normal cellular networks, but the originating signal showed quantum entanglement properties that shouldn't be possible with current technology. The call had somehow been routed through time itself, using principles of quantum communication that wouldn't be discovered for centuries. Michael reported the incident to authorities, who couldn't explain it. He's never received another call from his future self, but he says he thinks about that moment every single day. Michael Torres was a 34-year-old investigative journalist working for a major newspaper in Los Angeles. On the evening of January 15, 2020, he was packing for a business trip to New York, scheduled to fly out the next morning on Transcontinental Airlines Flight 447. His phone rang at 11:47 p.m. from a number that showed up as unknown on his caller ID. Nothing unusual about that, he thought. probably a spam call. But something compelled him to answer it anyway. What he heard next would haunt him for the rest of his life. The voice that spoke to him was unmistakably his own. Not similar, not close, but identical in every vocal characteristic, down to the slight rasp he had from years of smoking in college and the way he emphasized certain syllables. But the voice sounded older, more mature, carrying a weight of experience that his 34-year-old self hadn't yet acquired. "Michael, this is you," the voice said calmly. "I'm calling from the year 4128, and I need you to listen very carefully. Do not board Transcontinental Flight 447 tomorrow morning. The plane will crash shortly after takeoff. Everyone on board will die. You need to trust me and cancel your flight immediately." Now imagine how you would react in that situation. Michael's first instinct was that this was an elaborate prank, maybe a colleague using voice manipulation software to mess with him. But then the caller said something that froze his blood cold. "I know you're skeptical. You're thinking about the scar on your left shoulder blade from when you fell off the garage roof trying to see the comet in 1997. You never told anyone about that because you were embarrassed. You told your parents you got the scar playing basketball." Michael had never shared that memory with a single person. Not his family, not his closest friends, not even the doctors who treated the wound. It was a deeply private moment of childhood humiliation that he'd kept to himself for over 2 decades. The caller continued, providing detail after detail. He mentioned Michael's first kiss with Sarah Hendricks behind the gym in 8th grade, the exact words Michael's dying grandmother had whispered to him in the hospital that no one else had heard, and even the content of a private journal Michael had kept as a teenager and later destroyed. Every piece of information was absolutely accurate, things that literally no one else could possibly know. The caller explained that quantum communication technology in the year 4128 had made it possible to send information backward through time, using principles of entanglement that current physics was only beginning to theorize. He said this was the only warning he could send, and that Michael needed to make the choice himself. The call lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Michael recorded the final 2 minutes on a voice memo app, thinking he might need proof later that he wasn't losing his mind. When the caller hung up, Michael sat in stunned silence, his hands shaking. Part of him wanted to dismiss it as an impossibly elaborate hoax, but those private memories kept echoing in his mind. How could anyone know those things? At 2:30 a.m., unable to sleep, he made the decision. He canceled his flight and rebooked for the following day, telling himself he was being ridiculous but unable to shake the terror that gripped him. On the morning of January 16, 2020, at 8:43 a.m., Transcontinental Airlines Flight 447 took off from Los Angeles International Airport en route to New York. 12 minutes into the flight, the plane experienced catastrophic engine failure. It crashed in a remote area of the Mojave Desert, killing all 157 passengers and crew on board. Michael watched the breaking news coverage in his hotel room, feeling like reality itself had fractured around him. The plane he was supposed to be on had crashed exactly as his future self had warned. Absolutely insane, doesn't even begin to describe how that must have felt. Michael immediately reported the incident to the FBI, bringing his phone and the recording as evidence. Federal investigators were understandably skeptical, but they took the case seriously given the tragedy. What they discovered sent chills through the investigative team. Telecommunications experts analyzed Michael's phone records and found the incoming call listed in his cellular provider's database. But here's where it gets even more bizarre. The metadata associated with that call showed anomalies that telecommunications engineers had never seen before. The signal appeared to have been routed through multiple cellular towers simultaneously, something that should be impossible. More incredibly, spectral analysis of the signal showed quantum coherence patterns, signatures that suggested the information had been transmitted through quantum entanglement rather than normal electromagnetic waves. Dr. Patricia Chen, a quantum physicist from Caltech who was brought in to consult on the case, stated in her confidential report that the signal characteristics were consistent with theoretical models of quantum communication through time, a concept that existed only in academic papers and had never been achieved practically. She wrote that if the call was genuine, it represented technology at least several centuries beyond our current capabilities. The voice recording Michael had captured was analyzed by forensic audio specialists who confirmed it was indeed Michael's voice, with no signs of digital manipulation or AI synthesis. But the vocal patterns showed characteristics of someone approximately 20 to 30 years older than Michael's current age. Skeptics offered various explanations. Some suggested it was an incredibly sophisticated intelligence operation designed to prevent Michael from being on that flight for reasons unknown, using classified technology and illegally obtained information about his personal life. Others proposed it might have been an elaborate setup by the airline or aircraft manufacturer who knew about the mechanical issues and wanted to avoid liability. A few even suggested Michael himself might have been involved in causing the crash and fabricated the time travel story as a cover. But here's what absolutely no one could explain: how anyone could have known with such certainty that the plane would crash, and how they could have accessed memories that existed only in Michael's mind. The investigation eventually went cold. The FBI classified the case as unexplained anomalous communication event and filed it away. Michael Torres continues to work as a journalist, though he says the experience changed him fundamentally. He still carries the same phone, hoping that maybe one day he'll receive another call, perhaps with more information about the future, or an explanation of why he was chosen to be saved. He's given several interviews about the incident, always careful to present only the facts without claiming to know what really happened. Think about how that would affect you, knowing that your future self reached back through time to save your life, but left you with more questions than answers. To this day, the quantum signature detected in that phone call remains unexplained by current science. Pretty creepy when you consider that Michael Torres is walking around knowing he should be dead, saved by a technology that won't exist for over 2,000 years. So was it really Michael Torres from the year 4128 calling to warn his younger self? And if so, why only that one warning? Did he change the timeline by surviving, creating a paradox, or was his survival always meant to happen? And perhaps most unsettling of all, if future Michael could send one warning back through time, what else might he know about the future that he chose not to share? A thought that is as terrifying as it is absolutely mind-blowing. In 2018, a homeless man in Tokyo was arrested for vagrancy and found carrying a small transparent crystal no larger than a USB drive. When police tried to catalog his belongings, the crystal suddenly activated, projecting detailed holographic videos into the air showing cities unlike anything on Earth, flying vehicles, and humans with cybernetic enhancements. The man, who called himself Takeshi Yamamoto, explained that he was a historian from the year 4128 and that the crystal contained over 500 terabytes of historical archives from his era. He said he had brought it back to document the 21st century for future records. Technology experts from Sony and several universities examined the device and were absolutely stunned. The crystal appeared to store data in three-dimensional molecular structures using principles of quantum storage that were only theoretical in our time. It required no power source and could project images with resolution and clarity far beyond anything modern technology could produce. When researchers tried to connect it to computers to extract the data, the device would only respond to Takeshi's biometric signature. After 3 weeks of examination, authorities reluctantly returned the device to him. He walked out of the police station and vanished into the crowded streets of Shibuya, never to be found again. Multiple witnesses recorded the holographic projections on their phones, and the footage is still analyzed today. On August 22, 2018, Tokyo Metropolitan Police officers found Takeshi Yamamoto sleeping in Yoyogi Park, a common area where homeless individuals sometimes took shelter. He appeared to be in his 40s, disheveled but articulate and cooperative when officers approached him. During the routine processing at the Shibuya police station, officers inventoried his minimal possessions: worn clothing, a water bottle, and a strange transparent crystal about 4 centimeters long and 2 centimeters wide. It looked like a piece of decorative quartz, or perhaps a novelty item. Officer Kenji Tanaka picked it up to examine it more closely. And that's when everything changed. The moment Officer Tanaka's hand made contact with the crystal, it began to glow with a soft blue light. Then, without warning, a three-dimensional holographic image materialized in the air above the evidence table. Everyone in the room froze. The hologram showed a sprawling cityscape unlike anything they had ever seen. Towers that seemed to pierce the clouds, vehicles that flew through the air without wings or propellers, and streets filled with people who had visible cybernetic implants, glowing neural interfaces on their temples, and clothing made of materials that appeared to shift colors and patterns in real time. Think about how surreal that must have been, watching images from an impossible future suddenly materialize in a police station in modern-day Tokyo. Officer Tanaka immediately called for his supervisor, and within minutes, the small evidence room was packed with police officers, all staring at the holographic display in stunned silence. The images cycled through different scenes: massive agricultural facilities floating in the sky, underwater cities with transparent domes, humans working alongside humanoid robots that moved with fluid, lifelike precision, and transportation networks that seemed to operate on principles completely foreign to current engineering. The resolution was extraordinary, sharper and more detailed than even the most advanced 8K displays available in 2018. You could see individual faces in crowds, read text on floating holographic signs, and observe the texture of clothing and architecture with perfect clarity. Takeshi Yamamoto calmly explained to the bewildered officers that the crystal was a standard historical archive device from the year 4128. He claimed to be a temporal historian documenting different eras of human civilization. According to him, the crystal stored over 500 terabytes of data, including video footage, written records, and three-dimensional scans of objects and locations from his time period. He said he had been in Tokyo for 3 months, observing and recording daily life in the early 21st century, living on the streets to experience society from multiple perspectives. His mission, he explained, was pure documentation with no interference in historical events. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. Tokyo Metropolitan Police contacted technology experts from Sony Corporation, Toshiba, and several universities, including the University of Tokyo and Tokyo Institute of Technology. Over the next 3 weeks, specialists in materials science, quantum physics, holography, and data storage examined the device under controlled laboratory conditions. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, a leading expert in quantum computing from the University of Tokyo, led the investigation. His team's findings were published in a confidential report that later leaked to the press, and what they discovered was genuinely mind-blowing. The crystal was composed of a material that didn't match any known substance in materials databases. Spectroscopic analysis showed it contained elements in molecular arrangements that appeared to be artificially structured at the atomic level, something far beyond current nanotechnology capabilities. When examined under electron microscopy, the internal structure revealed three-dimensional lattices that seemed to store information in the ETO, positioning and quantum states of individual molecules. Dr. Nakamura described it as molecular-level data storage utilizing quantum superposition principles that our current technology cannot even theoretically replicate. Now, here's what really sent chills through the research team. The crystal required absolutely no power source, no batteries, no wireless charging, nothing. Yet it could project bright, clear holographic images for hours without dimming or showing any signs of energy depletion. Engineers calculated that the power requirements for such high-resolution holographic projection should drain any portable power source within minutes. The crystal somehow generated its own energy, possibly through zero-point energy extraction or quantum vacuum fluctuations, concepts that exist only in theoretical physics papers. When researchers attempted to connect the crystal to computers using various interfaces, it remained completely inert. But when Takeshi held it, the device activated immediately, responding to his touch and even seeming to respond to his verbal commands in Japanese. The holographic footage became the subject of intense analysis. Witnesses at the police station had recorded segments on their phones, and that footage quickly spread online before authorities could contain it. Technology analysts examined the videos frame by frame, looking for signs of CGI, projection tricks, or digital manipulation. What they found was absolutely baffling. The holograms showed consistent physics, realistic lighting that responded to the environment, and details that would require rendering farms and months of work to create using current visual effects technology. More incredibly, when people walked around the holographic projection, the perspective shifted correctly, showing true three-dimensional depth that flat projections couldn't replicate. Skeptics proposed various theories. Some argued that Takeshi was part of a classified technology demonstration by a government or corporation showcasing next-generation holographic storage. Others suggested he might be connected to industrial espionage, using the time traveler story as cover for transporting stolen advanced technology. A few claimed the whole thing was an elaborate hoax using hidden projectors and actors. But here's what absolutely no one could explain: the crystal's material composition, its ability to function without power, and the sheer volume of data it apparently contained. Dr. Nakamura's team estimated that even if such molecular storage was possible, encoding 500 terabytes of three-dimensional holographic data would require computational power and precision that wouldn't exist for decades, possibly centuries. After 3 weeks, Japanese authorities faced a legal dilemma. They had no evidence Takeshi had committed any crime beyond sleeping in a public park, and they couldn't justify keeping his property indefinitely despite its mysterious nature. Legal advisors determined they had to return the crystal. On September 14, 2018, Takeshi walked out of the police station with the crystal safely in his pocket. Multiple plainclothes officers followed him, hoping to see where he went or perhaps hoping he would lead them to others. But Takeshi simply walked into the crowded Shibuya crossing, one of the busiest pedestrian intersections in the world, and vanished. Officers lost sight of him within minutes, despite there being dozens of witnesses and hundreds of security cameras in the area. He simply disappeared into the crowd and was never seen again. Not a single trace of him could be found on any security footage after that moment. Pretty creepy, right? To this day, the video footage recorded by witnesses remains some of the most analyzed content in technology and UFO research communities. Frame-by-frame analysis continues to reveal new details about the future cityscape shown in the projections. Some researchers claim to have identified architectural styles that blend influences from multiple cultures, suggesting a globally integrated civilization. Others point to details in the technology shown, like the apparent absence of handheld devices, suggesting information might be accessed through neural implants instead. So was Takeshi Yamamoto truly a historian from the year 4128, carrying an archive of the future in a crystal no larger than your thumb? And if so, what was he really doing here? Was he simply documenting our era as he claimed, or was he looking for something specific in our time? And here's perhaps the most unsettling question. If that crystal contained 500 terabytes of information about the year 4128, what secrets about our future did it hold that we'll never get to see? A thought that is as frustrating as it is absolutely fascinating. What if you woke up one morning and discovered that you had lived 2 completely different lives, one in our timeline and one in a future that hasn't happened yet? That's the absolutely terrifying reality facing a woman known only as Patient Zero in a classified medical facility in Nevada. In 2022, she was found unconscious in the desert outside Area 51, wearing clothing made of materials that didn't exist and carrying no identification. When she woke up, she had complete memories of 2 separate existences. In one, she was Dr. Catherine Wells, a physicist from 2022. In the other, she was the same person, but from the year 4128, sent back through an experimental temporal gateway that had malfunctioned during transit. The malfunction had apparently caused her consciousness to split across timelines, leaving her aware of both lives simultaneously. Medical examinations revealed something that shocked every doctor involved. Her brain showed activity patterns that suggested 2 separate consciousness streams operating in parallel, something that should be neurologically impossible. She could describe in perfect detail both her life in the present and her life in the future, including technologies, historical events, and personal relationships from both timelines. She spoke about the Temporal Gateway Project in the year 4128, designed to allow historians to observe the past without interfering, and how her accident had trapped her between times. What makes this case the most disturbing of all is that Dr. Wells claims the condition is spreading. She says that as temporal technology develops over the centuries, more and more incidents like hers will occur, until eventually humanity will have to confront a reality where past, present, and future exist simultaneously. She remains under observation, and her detailed accounts of life in the year 4128 have been documented in thousands of pages of classified reports that may never see the light of day. On July 3, 2022, at approximately 3:47 a.m., security patrols near the restricted perimeter of Area 51 in Nevada discovered an unconscious woman lying in the desert sand roughly 2 miles from the base's outer fence. She was wearing a form-fitting suit made of a silvery material that seemed to regulate its own temperature despite the desert's extreme heat. The fabric had no visible seams, zippers, or buttons, as if it had been manufactured as a single piece. Military personnel immediately secured the area and transported her to a classified medical facility within the base. She carried no wallet, no phone, no identification of any kind. Her fingerprints and DNA matched no records in any database worldwide. For all intents and purposes, she didn't exist. When she regained consciousness 12 hours later, the woman introduced herself as Dr. Catherine Wells and immediately asked what year it was. When told it was 2022, she became visibly distressed, explaining that she was also from the year 4128 and that something had gone catastrophically wrong during her temporal transit. Now, imagine trying to process that as a doctor. This woman was claiming to exist in 2 time periods simultaneously, and the way she described it made it sound like both timelines were equally real to her, happening at the same time in her mind. Dr. Rebecca Marsh, a military neurologist assigned to examine her, conducted the initial psychiatric evaluation, expecting to find symptoms of psychosis, dissociative identity disorder, or perhaps drug-induced delusions. But what she discovered instead sent chills through the entire medical team. During cognitive testing, Dr. Wells could answer questions about current events from 2022 with perfect accuracy, referencing recent news, political situations, and technological developments. But she could also describe in equally vivid detail events from the year 4128, including historical records of what happened between 2022 and her era, technological breakthroughs, and even personal memories of a life she claimed to have lived in that distant future. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Dr. Marsh ordered comprehensive neurological scans using the most advanced brain imaging technology available at the facility. The results were unlike anything in medical literature. Dr. Wells's brain showed 2 distinct patterns of neural activity operating simultaneously. In the left hemisphere, normal patterns associated with memory recall, present moment awareness, and current identity. But in the right hemisphere, completely different patterns that neurologists had never seen before, suggesting a separate stream of consciousness processing information from what she claimed was her future existence. It was as if 2 different people were sharing the same brain, each maintaining their own thoughts, memories, and awareness. Dr. Wells explained the situation with remarkable clarity despite the obvious trauma of her condition. According to her, in the year 4128, humanity had developed temporal gateway technology that allowed observers to travel backward in time to study historical periods. She had been a senior researcher in the Temporal Observation Program, volunteering for a mission to observe early 21st century quantum physics research. The gateway operated by creating a stable wormhole through spacetime, but during her transit, there had been a catastrophic energy surge. Instead of arriving cleanly in 2022, her consciousness had somehow been split across both time periods. She described it as living in 2 places at once, aware of both her life in 2022 as a physicist working at MIT and her life in 4128 as a temporal researcher. Think about how terrifying that would be. Every moment she could remember her childhood in the 1990s and also remember growing up in the 2080s. She could recall her 2022 colleagues and simultaneously remember working with people who wouldn't be born for decades. She described it as a constant state of dual existence that was slowly driving her toward psychological breakdown. Imagine trying to maintain your sanity while experiencing two complete lives at the same time, with both sets of memories equally vivid and real. Now, here's where the case took an even more disturbing turn. Over the following months, Dr. Wells provided detailed accounts of life in the year 4128. Military intelligence officers recorded thousands of hours of interviews, filling classified reports with descriptions of future technologies, social structures, and historical events. She described the climate catastrophes of the late 21st century, the development of fusion power in 2089, the establishment of permanent Mars colonies in 2156, and the eventual creation of the temporal gateway technology itself in 4091. What made her accounts particularly compelling was their internal consistency. She never contradicted herself, never had to pause to invent details, and could answer technical questions about future physics and engineering with the fluency of someone who had actually lived through those advances. Dr. Marsh brought in specialists from various fields to verify Dr. Wells's claims. Physicists questioned her about future scientific developments and found her descriptions of theoretical concepts to be not only plausible, but sometimes offering solutions to current unsolved problems in quantum mechanics and relativity. Historians asked about future events and found her accounts to be internally consistent with logical progressions from current geopolitical situations. Neuroscientists were baffled by her brain scans, which continued to show the impossible dual consciousness patterns that suggested her mind was genuinely accessing information from two different temporal locations. But then Dr. Wells revealed something that absolutely terrified everyone involved in her case. She claimed that her condition, which she called temporal displacement syndrome, wasn't unique to her. According to future medical records she could access in her 4128 memories, the first cases of TDS began appearing in the early 21st century, precisely around 2022. She explained that as temporal technology developed over the centuries, it created ripples backward through time, occasionally causing individuals to become temporally displaced even before the technology that displaced them had been invented. It was a causality paradox that future scientists had struggled to understand. She predicted that more cases would begin appearing and that by the late 22nd century, TDS would be recognized as a legitimate medical condition affecting thousands of people who found themselves experiencing multiple timelines simultaneously. Skeptics within the military and intelligence community offered alternative explanations. Some suggested Dr. Wells might be the product of a foreign government's experimental program, combining advanced neurology, hypnosis, and false memory implantation to create the perfect intelligence asset. Others proposed she might have an unprecedented neurological condition, causing her brain to generate elaborate false memories that seemed real. A few even speculated she could be suffering from a technology-induced psychosis, perhaps from exposure to experimental electromagnetic fields or psychoactive compounds. But here's what absolutely no one could explain. The dual consciousness patterns visible on every brain scan, the impossibility of maintaining such detailed and consistent false memories without contradiction, and most disturbingly, the fact that several predictions she made about events in 2023 and 2024 have since come true with unsettling accuracy. Dr. Catherine Wells remains in the classified facility to this day, now designated as Patient Zero in what military medical personnel are quietly calling the Temporal Displacement Project. She continues to experience both timelines simultaneously, though she reports that the 4128 timeline is slowly fading, becoming less vivid, as if her consciousness is gradually collapsing into the 2022 timeline. Doctors don't know if this is progress or if it means her future self is somehow dying across time. She's provided detailed technical specifications for technologies that won't be invented for centuries, described historical events that haven't occurred yet, and warned of potential disasters that may or may not come to pass. All of this information remains classified at the highest levels of government security. To this day, the classified reports documenting patient Zero's case remain locked away, accessible only to individuals with the highest security clearances. Pretty insane when you think about the implications. If Dr. Wells is telling the truth, then we're not just looking at time travel. We're looking at a fundamental breakdown in the linear nature of time itself, a future where past, present, and future can overlap and coexist within a single human consciousness. So is Dr. Catherine Wells truly experiencing two lives across two different time periods simultaneously? Is her condition proof that time travel will eventually be achieved? Or is it evidence of something even stranger happening to the fabric of reality itself? And if she's right that more cases of temporal displacement syndrome will begin appearing, are there others out there right now living in multiple timelines, too afraid to come forward? And here's the most terrifying question of all. If consciousness can split across time, does that mean our own minds might already be experiencing futures we're not yet aware of, realities we haven't yet learned to access? A thought that is as absolutely mind-blowing as it is deeply, deeply unsettling. Now, we're incredibly curious to hear your thoughts. Do you believe these stories of time travelers from the year 4128 are real? Which case fascinated you the most? Was it Marcus Chen's holographic ID that dissolved into nothing, Elena Vasquez's atmospheric purifier that defied physics, or patient Zero living two lives across two different timelines simultaneously? Drop your answers in the comments below. We can't wait to see which case you found the most convincing. And here's one final question for you. If you could meet someone from the year 4128, what's the first question you would ask them about the future? Tell us in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more mysterious cases like these, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.